Theruvan Sarnai. I think you got a chance to rediscuss the Dhamma and you got a chance to contemplate and understand. Actually, understanding is the best way, and it is the only way to attain Nibbana. We all suffer due to the lack of knowledge about nature. If you don't know rules, then we have to suffer because we don't know the rules. We don't know the laws. In that case, if you really want to come out of vexation, or if you really want to cease vexation, understanding is the best way. That's why we always discuss the Dhamma. You always come here and you try to understand the Dhamma. And contemplate. When you have the understanding, you will have a new set of eyes to see the world. That is called vipassana. Then you can practice vipassana meditation. It is not a method of meditation. It's a new set of eyes. Eyes of wisdom. With the understanding, you will get that. When you have those eyes, then you can use those eyes and see the world as it is. But right now, if you don't have those eyes, you will see the world according to the ignorant mind. That means you can't see the world as it is. We should see the world as it is. We can't use our opinions. Because the mind always uses its opinions, its ideas. Therefore, the mind can't see the world as it is. Therefore, we need to understand the Dhamma and achieve wisdom. When you have wisdom, the mind will use wisdom to make its decisions. Because all the time the mind has to make decisions. The mind does all the time. That's why you always make wrong decisions. If the mind is wrong, which means if the mind is ignorant, then the mind has to make wrong decisions. But the mind doesn't know about it. The mind doesn't know that it's mad. It's mad means it's ignorant and mind doesn't know that it can't see the world as it is. But it thinks that it sees the world as it is. Therefore, the mind believes what it believes. Therefore, we always suffer. We means, again, the mind always suffers. Somehow we need to teach the mind. If the mind knows the truth, then it can make correct decisions. Like when you see me, you see a human being. It's completely wrong. Because I am not a human being. Then who am I? Then when you see this whiteboard, most of the time you see a whiteboard. Actually, you can't see a whiteboard. That's your opinion. You can't see a whiteboard. You only can see colors, which means the mind perceives colors. Perceiving a color is called the mind. As we all know, the mind is a process, and we can say as Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankar Vijnana. This is the mind, the process of the mind. When this process happens, seeing happens. That means a color is perceived. Therefore, whenever you see me, you only see a color or some colors. Other than that, you can't see anything. But when you see those colors, you see a shape. When you see the shape, the mind identifies that shape as an entity or a fixed thing. Then the mind wants to name that shape, and the mind has those names in its mind. Mind means it is its memory. Then the mind takes those things from the memory and uses it. Therefore, when you see this shape, you identify this as a rectangle. You always see a shape here. Therefore, you can name this as a rectangle. But if I show you this point, what is this? I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about these things. I just talk about this point. What is this? Now, when I point at this point, you can't name this because you can't find a shape. In that case, you can see if we have a shape, or if we have two or more than two colors, a shape is created in our mind. But that's not the problem. That's not the problem if you know the process. If you know how it creates. In order to understand that, you need to understand anicca dukkha anatta. Otherwise, you will only see fixed objects. Then you will name them as objects. Then you will believe that everything is an object. But I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, there is no one. There is nothing is there as an object. You can't find any object in this world. But if you see an object, you will feel yourself. You will feel your existence. This is very dangerous. When you perceive yourself, you suffer. Because you know that a woman dies, you don't mind, but your mother dies, now you mind. Now you cry. Now you can't tolerate. When something happens to something, you don't mind. But if something happens to your thing, then you mind and you can't tolerate it anymore. In that case, you can see when you perceive yourself, you have a huge burden. You have to live with that burden. When you think about your children, you have that burden because you always think about their future and their past. Therefore, you have regret. You always regret by thinking about your past and your children's past. Always you think about those things. In that case, you always suffer because of that. If you really want to stop suffering, now you have a path. Somehow you need to eradicate the feeling or eradicate the perception of self. Luckily, it's a perception. If it is real, then we have to suffer, we can't come out of this. That's why when you understand the Dhamma, when you understand dukkha, I would say the dukkha. That's what the Buddha said. But if you take that dukkha with suffering, now you can't do anything. Because if you can understand the truth, which means if you can understand the dukkha, you will be over the moon. Because you know that you can escape from this suffering. But if you can't understand the dukkha, and if you think that it's suffering, and if you think that the Buddha always talk about suffering, now you don't have any chance to escape. Therefore, if you can understand the dukkha and realize that there is a path to escape, then we can practice. That's why we are gathered here, to talk about that path. There is a path. There is a path and there is a jail. There is a jail and there is freedom. You have created your own jail because of wrong understanding. Therefore, we need to understand the truth properly. We need to see nature properly. We need to understand the universe properly. If we can understand that, then when the understanding is completed, you will achieve freedom. You will realize, or you will experience freedom. You can't free yourself because of the lack of understanding. Still, if you think that you are suffering, and or not think, actually, if you are suffering, you need to understand. We practice to understand. We listen to understand. We contemplate to understand. We need to complete understanding. That's why we meditate. Actually, meditation and practice are the same. Therefore, you don't have to practice meditation. You just need to practice. You just need to use. When you use, you will understand it properly. It's like 2 into 5, it's 10. You have understood it properly. No one can change it now. Whenever you want, you can use it. 2 into 5 is 10. Likewise, if you can see the truth of the world, the mind will use it whenever it needs. Whenever it needs means actually every time it needs. Every time it needs to apply, because whenever you see something, you see means whenever the mind is created. Whenever you see means whenever the mind is created. Whenever the mind is created, the mind has to use its knowledge. That's why I always tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this must be the first lesson when you were born. When we were born, our parents taught us how to walk. They taught us how to chew. But they didn't teach us how to think, how to make decisions. Because actually they didn't know about that. The mind has to make decisions all the time. Because the mind can't see. It perceives some colors. It perceives some colors, and colors are aggregated. And a shape is created. When the shape is created, we should understand that it's only a sambhuta. It's a compound. It's a manifestation. It's an aggregation. If we don't understand that, we will be deceived. Actually, the mind is deceived. When the mind is deceived, it makes wrong decisions. It thinks that it's an object. When it thinks that it's an object, then automatically it thinks that it's a being. That's how you see things wherever you are. Now you are sitting over there and you are looking at me. Now the world is completed. Because I am here and you are there. You see me. You listen to me. The world is completed. This is how you can create a world. The ego likes it. The ego wants to create a world all the time. Then it can live in that world. The ego wants to be created all the time. Therefore, the ego wants the mind to be ignorant. Therefore, the ego never let the mind to understand the truth. That's why it is really hard, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't help me, I can manage. But if you don't help you, who will help you? You are the only person who can help you. I only can guide you. But the ego doesn't let you understand these things. Sometimes you want to practice, but ego doesn't want. The ego doesn't want, therefore, it stops eventually. Or sometimes you really want to practice. Perhaps the ego wants to practice, but not the path. It wants to meditate. It deceives. It wants to meditate. Therefore, sometimes you go for vipassana meditation. When you hear that word, the ego wants to go and practice. Then perhaps the ego sees something and looking at it and start meditating. Then the ego sees an object. Let's assume that the ego sees a skeleton. When it comes to a skeleton, it should be definitely what? It should definitely be vipassana, because it's a skeleton. This is how people believe. Now tell me, if you have understood the Dhamma, now tell me, if you see a skeleton as an object, do you practice vipassana by looking at it? No. I will give you a beautiful queen, a princess. You have to look at her and start meditating. But if you can't see an object, you can attain Nibbana by looking at her. This doesn't depend on the object, ladies and gentlemen. If you see the object, you fail. There is no difference between a queen and a skeleton. I'm not insulting her, but I didn't say the queen. Perhaps she is now. I'm not talking about her. A princess and a skeleton. What's the difference? A princess has flesh and the skeleton Doesn't have. Is that the difference? No. You can't see any difference. You can't see any difference. You can't mean actually, if you see a difference, that means you are talking about objects. When it comes to an object, you will see two different things. A princess and a skeleton. That's not vipassana, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know anicca dukkha anatta properly, you can't practice vipassana. Because vipassana meditation can't be practiced if you don't have that set of eyes I told you before. That means you should achieve wisdom first of all. That means you should understand anicca dukkha anatta properly. You should be able to apply anicca dukkha anatta into the world. Then you won't see any objects. If you don't see objects, you won't experience yourself. If you won't experience yourself, you won't suffer anymore, and you don't have that burden. But still you have responsibilities, and you will fulfill your responsibilities. Actually, your responsibilities are not a burden. It became a burden when you take them into your account. That means you have created your account first of all, and you take those things into your account. You can't tolerate when your child is crying, can you? Your child has a headache. Because of that he is crying. He's crying a lot. You can't tolerate. You have a responsibility to cure him. You can give some paracetamol, and you should be able to look at him. He's crying, he's jumping, but you should be able to look at him. Because you have done your responsibility. Why do you cry at that time? Because it became a burden. Your responsibility became a burden. It became a burden due to ignorance and attachment. Due to the feeling of self, perception of self. That's why I always tell you, this is unnecessary burden lesson. This is an unnecessary burden. You don't have to take this burden. If you can understand the Dhamma, you won't take it. You won't feel it. But still you have those responsibilities. We will fulfill those responsibilities. I also have responsibilities, many responsibilities, more than you. I do my responsibilities to the fullest. But if you leave the monastery, do you really think that I will cry? I will say yes. I was joking. I won't cry. Therefore, you can promise me that we will definitely come, and you can break your promises. Do you really think that it hurts me? No. But I have a responsibility to tell you. Whenever I meet you, I always tell you, I force you. If I can hit you, I will hit you and take you in. I take them as my responsibilities. But I don't have a burden. If I have a burden, I know that because of the lack of practice, it happens. Then I start practicing. I start practicing means I always try to practice. I want you to practice all the time. Understand and practice. That's the only way we can cease the process of suffering. Therefore, please understand anicca properly. Then when you understand anicca, you know that there is no tendency. Things to be gathered or things to be aggregated. It is aggregated forcefully because of attachment. Therefore, whenever you see this, you can't decide that this is a fixed object. This is not a fixed object. Energy is gathered or energy is aggregated forcefully. Therefore, this is not an object. This is a compound. This is a manifestation. This is an aggregation. This is not fixed. If this is not fixed, this can't be unique. Energy is aggregated. It happens forcefully. If we take an example, let's take a wall, brick wall. We take a brick wall. When we say a brick wall, we know that bricks don't have any tendency to be together. It doesn't have any plan. But you use cement, and you make a wall. In the wall, there are some bricks, but they don't have that tendency. They are not biased. They are not biased to build anything. They are free. This energy is free. It doesn't have any wanting to make anything. Try to understand the meaning of anicca. Energy is free, totally free. That's nature. Nature is free, ladies and gentlemen. Nature is free. When you understand this fully, you will be nature. You will free. You will be free. Just think about that. When you don't have any wanting, how would you feel? You can't think about that because you have a lot of wantings. When you have a lot of wantings, you are not free. You always have to work. Your mind is a hell because you always suffer because of your wantings, and you try to achieve them because you want to come out of vexation. When you achieve something, you still want it, but you have a fear of losing it. When you can't tolerate that, then you try to maintain it. There are 5 ways. First thing, you have a wanting. Because of that wanting, you have a vexation. Because of that vexation, you do something to come out of vexation. Then you achieve something. When you do something, you achieve something. When you achieve something, you have a fear of losing it. You can't tolerate that. You don't want to tolerate it. Therefore, you try to maintain it. Therefore, you have maintenance. Now, in this case, you can see there are 5 types of vexations or 5 types of sufferings. When you have a wanting, you can't escape from this route. You have to go through this. When you want a car, you have to go through this. When you want a house, you have to go through this. When you want a child, you're going to go through this. When you want a family, you have to go through this. Now, in this case, you can see each time when you want something, you always suffer. Then how can you be free? Can you let this be destroyed? You can't do anything to these things because you want. You want your child. Because they are your children. They are not children. They are not children. They are your children. Because this wanting is not free. When it comes to a wanting, it's not free. Every time you had to write an entity with it. Want. When someone says want, just want, that word, it doesn't work alone. We have to use the entity. Then we will realize that it has a unique nature. I want. You want. She wants. We had to write that name first. That means we had to write that entity. In this case, if you have a wanting, you should realize that you became an entity. That's why you have specific wantings. If there is a wanting, there is a being behind that. Therefore, when you have a wanting, that being is here. This being always suffers because of this wanting. This being always suffers because of this vexation. This being always suffers because the being has to work. Because when you work, you always feel that you are working. Then, when the fear comes, the being feels the fear. And the being has to maintain it. That's why you are so busy. You all are so busy. You have to maintain all these things. And the other problem is, you always have wantings. Perhaps now you have, I would say, 1 billion wantings. Right now. 1 billion wantings from your childhood. Perhaps you don't want to destroy or you want to discard your doll. Still you have that. Because you received it from your beloved one, and perhaps your grandmother, she died, and now your doll, which was given by her, became a souvenir. Therefore now you want your doll to be with you. You have it. You want it. Like 1 billion wantings. When you had those 1 billion wantings, ladies and gentlemen, you had to maintain all these things. You have to maintain. You have a fear of losing them. But you don't learn a lesson. Therefore, when you hear or when you see a new view, when you get a new view, what happens? Then it becomes 1 billion plus 1. Then again, you have to go through this path. Today, if you see something, today, if you think that you really want to, let's say, Nibbana, then you have 1 billion plus 1. Because now you want to achieve your salvation, but you don't have it. Therefore, because of the wanting, you are vexed or you suffer, but you don't have your salvation. Sometimes you feel that others have salvation, but I don't have. Then you suffer even more. You suffer because you don't have it. Even if you achieve something, just something, you have to work hard. Perhaps you start meditating and you get a jhana. and you are losing, you have a fear of losing it, therefore you keep doing it, maintain. This is how it is. If you don't understand the Dhamma, by practicing the path, by listening to this sermon, you will have more wantings. Therefore, I'm not here to give you more wantings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you the path to reduce your wantings. Therefore, by listening to this, I don't want you to want to attain Nibbana. I want you to understand this. That's it. Otherwise, you have to go through these 5 steps. Everybody is going through these 5 steps, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody is going through these 5 steps. That's why people are suffering and they are restless. You can't talk to people. Sometimes they are arrogant. They are arrogant because actually they are suffering. When they experience their original mind, which means the calm mind, they are not arrogant. They are not arrogant, and actually they are very calm. They become very calm if they can experience their own mind. But now what they experience is ignorance and attachment. Due to ignorance and attachment, vexation occurs. Then you will always experience vexed mind. That's why you always experience anger. Perhaps you are angry most of the time. You are vexed, and others are also. Because of these things. Therefore, actually, there is no point in telling someone to be calm if they have wantings. There is no point in telling someone to stop thieving or murdering, killing. There's no point. Because when they have a wanting, they are vexed. And if they can't achieve that, they are vexed even more. No one can tolerate that. Then finally they will achieve this. Therefore, try to understand these 5 things. Apply these things in your life. When you go home, then you will see your wantings. You had those wantings, but still you want them, therefore you always keep them with you. You always keep them and you try to clean them every day. You had to clean your house, you had to clean your ornaments, you had small things. You got things, you got from somewhere, you bought things. You like tiny things. Because it shows your history. The ego likes history. Remember that. That's why wherever you go, you want to collect something. You want to take something and you place it perhaps on your fridge or somewhere. Then you always talk about it. Just imagine that. You always talk about it. When someone comes, you always talk about that. Oh, this is the place I went. This is a very nice place. You must go before you die. And you collected books and you said that you must read before you die. You have must watch movies, must read books. You always recommend them because that's your history. You like to talk about your history. I just think about that. Whenever you meet someone, you always talk about your history. The ego likes history because when the ego talks about the history, talks about its history, it thinks that he's talking about its history. Perhaps when you go to practice vipassana and you meet a friend, then you both sit down and you start practicing vipassana, and when you're practicing vipassana, perhaps when you have time, you talk about your history. Perhaps your last meditation session, you like to talk about that history. Do you really think that that's vipassana? When you talk about your history? No, the ego wants that, and you are deceived. That's why the Buddha asked not to talk about history. There are 32 speeches we shouldn't do when we practice the path, especially history and the future. When you talk about the future, we always talk about the ego. When you talk about the past, we always talk about the ego, because the ego have a past, the ego has a past, the ego has a future, but the ego doesn't want to talk about Pachuppanna. The ego can't talk about Pachuppanna. Therefore, if you can contemplate about Pachuppanna, the moment of Pachuppanna or Pachuppanna moment, if you can keep your mind there, the ego can't be born. That means you will be able to see the truth. You will be able to see the world as it is. Then you will see a compound here, a sambhutha. When you see a sambhutha, that means you have understood anicca. Therefore, when you have understood anicca, you can't think about any object. As a gentleman, if you really know about anicca, just imagine this. If there is no natural tendency, energy to be aggregated, how can you expect something to be an object? When it comes to an object, it should be fixed and unique. That's why you name them. This is an object. This is an object. If these two are fixed, and unique, these two can be objects. But the problem is, if everything is anicca, energy is there, but it is aggregated forcefully. Energy is free, right now as well. Energy is free. When you can understand the Dhamma, your mind is free. Like nature. Nature is free, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, nature can kill. Nature can kill, but it's not a killing. When nature kills something, it becomes nature. When you kill something, it's a killing and it's a murder. Did you understand what I meant? When nature kills something, it's not a killing. It becomes nature. Therefore, if you can remember, tsunami came. Can you remember? 1,000 people died, perhaps 1,000,000. Who's the accuser? No one is there. Because it became nature. Because everything is nature. But when you kill something, someone, it becomes a murder. But if you can be nature, you won't kill anyone. But when you see killing, you will see it as nature. When you see that someone is killing your son, oh, I don't want to see that. Huh? Your daughter. Of course, if you can protect, you will protect. Because you have a responsibility. Not only for your children, but for everyone. If you can, you will protect. But it becomes nature. If you can understand that, you will see the importance of practicing the path. If you can become nature, everything becomes nature. It's worthless, Achan. Put more time. Allocate more time. If you can allocate more time, you can practice more. If you can allocate more time to associate with Mahasangha, Bhikshu, Bhikshuni, Upasak, Upasika, who have understood the Dhamma, that doesn't depend on this robe. If you can allocate more time to associate with Mahasangha, then you can move forward easily. Try to be nature. Be anicca, then you will be nature. Be dukkha, then you will be nature. Be anatta, then you will be nature. Because those are the three main characteristics of nature. Well, if your mind, that means if you have those characteristics in your mind, then you are nature. Then you won't have to tolerate anything. Because you are nature. Nature doesn't tolerate anything, ladies and gentlemen. It's free. It's free. At least try to imagine that. You are free. You are free like energy. This energy is free. This energy is aggregated forcefully because of your wantings, because of attachment. They are aggregated. And now it looks like an object, but it's not an object. It looks like an object. When you see a brick wall, it looks like a brick wall. But there is a wall. In that wall, there are some bricks which are forcefully stored or forcefully kept. That's how you say. The brick doesn't know its position. A brick doesn't want to be there. Because those bricks are free. They don't want to be fixed. They are free, completely free. But you use cement. And you kept them forcefully. Therefore they are there. But still they are free. Still they are free. They don't want. They don't have that tendency again. Likewise, if you become nature, perhaps you have a family. but you are free. You have a family. When someone counts your family, then say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They count your name as well. But you are free. You are aggregated. You all are aggregated. And you are there, but you are free. You are there forcefully, but you are free. Like your body. These cells are free. But they are aggregated forcefully. Your mind is also the same. I'm talking about anicca session. Do you really think that anicca is so dangerous? The truth is very nice. Be anicca. Apply it. Try to see. When you see anicca, you will see dukkha here. Can you see dukkha? If you see anicca, you will definitely see dukkha. When you see dukkha, you definitely decide. You will make your decision that this is anatta. This is not unique. This is not an object. Anicca, dukkha, anatta when those things come together, it creates an object, or a person, or a being. If anicca, this must be. If this is anicca, then this must be dukkha. Just apply that. Modern science helps you. You have learnt modern science. You can apply that. We all know that this is metal. This is a metal, then this is full of electrons and positive ions. They are aggregated forcefully. Just apply that. Then you will realize that this is only a dukkha. Dukkha means a sambhuta. Sambhuta means aggregation. An aggregation or a manifestation. A compound. If it is a compound, you can't separate it. Then everything becomes same. Everything becomes the same. Everything becomes nature. Therefore, whenever you live, you can apply that. Whenever you see, you apply it. Whenever you see, apply that. Now, when you see this board, apply that. This is not a board. This is not an object. This is a manifestation. But you see a board. Because your mind makes wrong decisions. Because your mind believes everything is nicca, sukha, atta. That's why I told you. You should have learned this when you were born. Because from your birth, or since your birth, you have been making decisions. You means the mind has been making decisions. The mind sees colors, and colors are aggregated and shapes are made. If the mind thinks that those colors or those shapes are fixed, then it gets attached. When it gets attached, it perceives its existence. Then you see an object. When you see an object. Object was created, and the self was created. Now the self is looking at the object. This happens all the time. That's how you feel. You are looking at something, or you have been looking at something. Otherwise, there is no such thing called objects to see. There is no such thing called a being to observe. Only seeing occurs. Seeing occurs. The Buddha said, Suddha Sankara Punjoya. The Buddha said, this is only some sankara. This process. The process of the mind is called sankara. This is sankara. Sankara occurs all the time. That's why you feel that you are alive. Because something happens all the time. Seeing occurs, hearing occurs, thinking occurs. It happens all the time. Therefore you feel so alive. That's why your ego is not dead. Your ego feels it's alive. It's very active because actually you feel that you live. Have you felt that you like dead? No. You didn't feel that. Each time you feel alive because these processes occur all the time. Seeing occurs. When seeing occurs, thinking occurs. Why? When seeing occurs, then seeing happens, a dot, let's say the dot of color is perceived. Another dot of color is perceived. Another dot of color is perceived. Likewise, a dot of color, many dot of colors, many dot of color is perceived. Now finally, a shape occurs. A shape is created. When the shape is created, the mind has to identify this. Before the mind identifies this, the mind has to make decision whether this is an object or a sambhuta, an object or a manifestation. If mind is anicca dukkha anatta, it decides as a manifestation. If the mind is nicca sukhatta, it decides it's as an object. When it is an object, the mind gets attached because the mind wanted to see, perceive objects. When the mind is nicca sukhatta, the mind always wants to perceive them. You don't get attached to any objects, ladies and gentlemen, because there is no such thing called an object. You to get attached. You attach to your own knowledge, your own perception, not perception, but your own knowledge, wrong knowledge, because you always believe that everything is nicca, sukha, atta. Then when you see this, You only see colors. You use your eyes to see colors. Your eyes have separate corn cells. Each corn cell helps you to see a dot of color. Then you should know. If you know science, you should know that this is only an aggregation. This is only an aggregation of colors. But if the mind is ignorant, it makes wrong decisions. When it sees this, it makes decisions as a fixed object. Because it believes that everything is Nitya, Sukha, Atta. And now see, it sees this color, this shape, and it thinks that it is Nitya, Sukha, Atta. Then it becomes an object. Therefore, we can write Sambhuta plus Nitya, Sukha, Atta equals objects. A manifestation plus Nitya, Sukha, Atta is equal to an object. This is how you see object. Then, when the mind perceives an object, it gets attached. But we all know that the mind can't get attached to Sambhuta. Now tell me, in this case you can see the mind wants to get attached to Nitya, Sukha, Atta. Therefore, when you eradicate Nitya, Sukha, Atta from your mind by understanding the Dhamma, understanding the truth, when you can eradicate this Nitya, Sukha, Atta and apply Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, then it becomes Sambhuta. Then the mind never gets attached to Sambhuta. That's how you become an Arahant. You can't become an Arahant because your mind believes that everything is Nitya, Sukha, Atta. That is the pleasurable point to the mind. Not this. People can't see this essential, people only see this. See means actually people perceive only this, the object. You see actually you perceive an object, but actually you see some colors. You see some dots of colors and you see a shape. Finally, the mind makes decisions wrongly. Therefore, this became an object. But actually, this doesn't become an object. In your mind, this became an object. Because your mind made wrong decisions, not this. This is nature. This stays as it is. Therefore, if you can see, if you will be able to see this as it is, you have to eradicate Nitya, Sukha, Atta from your mind. Did you get the point? Then tell me, you are suffering because Nitya, Sukha, Atta. That's the only reason. You are suffering because Nitya, Sukha, Atta. If you know Nitya, Sukha, Atta, you suffer. If you know Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, you won't suffer anymore. Therefore, try to see this one as it is. Apply science into this, modern science. Apply this, and you will realize that this is not a fixed object. There is no such thing called an object. You can't find any object in the world. You only name them. You only perceive them as an object. That's why we don't have to change the world. We don't have to change the structure of this one. You don't have to do anything. Let's keep the world as it is. Let's understand the truth and apply the truth into the world. Therefore, whenever you perceive something, I want you to apply the Dhamma. Anyway, the mind applies the Dhamma. Not Dhamma, Adhamma. Not a Dhamma, Adhamma, which means wrong knowledge. Anyway, the mind applies it. Therefore, our main responsibility is educating the mind. Therefore, everybody should come here and understand this. This must be in all syllabuses of the world before they go to a nursery. We must teach how to think. If you really love your children, you must teach them how to think, how to make decisions. Sometimes they can't understand because they are, perhaps you think that they are very little, but they are suffering. Even though they are little, they are suffering. They are suffering because the mind makes decisions. Therefore, if you really want to win, then see these things as manifestations. Because they are. Try to see this one as a dukkha. Because it is a dukkha. This is how we practice. This is not hard. We just live. You just have to live. You don't have to find a place. You just have to live. When you see something, it's not enough. If you can't see, then hear. Listen to something. When you hear something, apply that. When you listen to music, next week perhaps we will talk about that. Music. When you listen to music, you should know that it's an aggregation. Definitely, it's an aggregation. And in the future, we will separate all the songs and show you. And we will play each track separately. Then you will stone at a singer. If we separate all the tracks, when you listen to a song, you say, "Oh, it's so beautiful." When we separate the tracks, then we will ask you to listen to them. Then one is done. One is done. This is how it is. Then you should know that it is Sangeeta. When it comes to Sinhalese, it has a meaning. I don't know whether we can take the same meaning in music, but when it comes to Sinhalese, it has Sangeeta. Come to the Sinhalese sermon, I will explain to that. I explain it to you. Sangeeta. When you understand that, you will experience Sangeeta, which means you will experience music, but you never enjoy it. Right now you enjoy music, ladies and gentlemen. You enjoy music. When you hear music, you do this one. And you do this one. That means actually you can't keep your head straight. You have to do this. Because of vexation. Don't ever think that it happens naturally. Because of vexation. Have you seen some trees that they are waving, they are shaking because of music? No. They are not vexed. They are not vexed. Therefore, when they listen to they can't listen to music anyway. But when they listen to music, they don't want to play. They don't want to move here and there. But you have to. Another thing is you prefer to listen to music than listen to your story, perhaps. Therefore, next time I will use some musical instruments and I'll make a song. Then you will listen to that. Perhaps you think that, oh, it's very nice today. The mind, which means actually the ego likes music, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever think that it is helpful. It is not helpful. To attain Nibbana. Nothing is helpful to attain Nibbana. Nothing. Because everything is created by the ego to satisfy itself. Therefore, each time we need to understand. We need to understand. That's it. Are we going to eradicate all the songs from the world? No. Let it be. Let it be. Let other people listen and dance until they realize the truth. The music makes them dance. Remember that. Originally, you are nature. You are free. No one can force you to do anything. Originally, you are free. But now you can see, you have many, I can't say responsibilities, I would say you have many burdens. You have bonds. Therefore, you are bonded and you are not free. You can't talk freely. You can't think freely. You are bonded to something all the time. You always get attached to music. You always get attached to beats, drum beats, all these things. You create them. You create them. In the future we will talk about that as well. These things are individual events. What about this? It's an individual event. What about this? Individual event. Individual event. Individual event. Individual event. Do you really want to listen to this? Huh? Okay, listen to this. Huh? Is it nice? Is it nice? No. I only hit this. I use my finger point and do this. That's it. You don't like this. What about this then? Now you like it. Now you like it. But I use the same thing. Even I didn't use my nails. I just used only this point. Then it becomes music. It becomes music. When the mind starts aggregating things. But it happens to Arahants as well. But you should understand that it's only an aggregation. Now you can do this. It's also an aggregation again. That means dancing. We have a great dancing teacher in your audience. Now he can understand this. A dance teacher, well-known dance teacher in India. What do you have to do? You have to 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Eh? That's what we had to do. If the mind can't aggregate these things, then you will only see this. We will talk about this. But if you can understand this and apply this into your life when you listen to music, you never listen to music again. You will listen, but it doesn't make any difference. But right now, it makes a lot. That's the problem. That's why you always listen. You pay. Not only that, you buy it by giving your life, by selling your life. Just imagine that. Because everything is your life, because you know that everything is time. But time is an illusion. When we talk about time, we always talk about our life. Therefore, you are wearing your life. Do you believe that? You must believe it. You are wearing your life. If you take the cost of your costume, your cloth, and divide by your income, then you will see how many days. You can't get anything free. You always have to give your life. When you listen to music, you always have to give your life. When you buy music, you have to listen. You have to give your life. When you listen to music, you have to give your life. Therefore, if you have listened to a million songs, not million, 100,000 songs, each song is 1 minute. That means 100,000 minutes are wasted. Why did I say wasted? Because it was wasted. Why? You are still listening to songs. You still listen to songs, ladies and gentlemen, because you try to find your salvation by listening to songs. That's why there are many salvations. There are many salvations. That's why the Buddha taught us Samma Vimukti. Vimukti means salvation. He said that Samma Vimukti. You need to achieve Samma Vimukti because there are so many Vimuktis, so many salvation. Marriage is also a salvation. That's how you think anyway. Not think, thought. I don't think. You think now. That's how you thought. Marriage is a salvation. Eating is a salvation. Eating delicious food is a salvation. But it's not Samma salvation. Noble salvation. Listening to a music. Listen to a piece of music is a salvation. That's why people always listen. And sometimes they think that when they listen to music, it's so great, and it's like a meditation. Perhaps you also think that, and perhaps you practice that. Perhaps you think that it calms you. Of course, the ego uses it. The ego enjoys it. Because the ego sees Sangeeta there. The ego sees music. One thing, just one thing. But you can't create a piece of music as a fixed thing. That's why I told you we can separate them into tracks. Music tracks. When all of them are gathered in, then that piece of music is created. But still, they have those tracks. But the mind can't understand that. The mind thinks that. Because mind believes that everything is Nitya Sukhatta. Therefore, when it hears a piece of music, it thinks that it is something fixed. In this case, a piece of music is also a sambhuta. It is a sambhuta, and Nitya Sukhatta is there. Therefore, the mind gets attached to Nitya Sukhatta. That means the attachment is created. Attachment is created in Nitya Sukhatta, the Buddha said. When something is pleasurable, attachment is created in that point. Pleasure is the place where attachment is created. Attachment is born. Pleasure. But you can't find pleasure in the world, can you? The world is not pleasurable. The world is not vexatious. The world is neutral. Then how attachment is born? When Nitya Sukha Atta is there, the mind feels a pleasure. The mind feels pleasure, mind perceives pleasure. In that place, in that point, attachment is born. Therefore, attachment is born in the mind, not in this. The mind can't get attached to the real world. It gets attached to its own world. Because the real world is Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta. The real world. But the mind world, the ignorant mind has a world. That world is Nicca, Sukha, Atta. That's where attachment is born. Because that's the most pleasurable place to the ignorant mind. When it feels that something is Nitya Sukhatta, it feels that this is Nitya Sukhatta. But this is not Nitya Sukhatta, this is Anicca Dukkhata, because this is created in the real world. Therefore, this should be Anicca Dukkha Anatta. But the mind feels that it is Nitya Sukhatta. Therefore, when you see this, with that seeing, the mind has Nitya Sukhatta, and the mind makes decisions with Nitya Sukhatta. Therefore, the attachment is created in Nitya Sukhatta, not in this object or the object or the shape which is created in the mind. A shape is created in the mind, but attachment is not born in that shape. Attachment is born, attachment is created in pleasure. That pleasure is there because of Anicca, Sukha, Atta. We are going to destroy the environment. Because we know the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Cause of suffering is tanha, attachment. But attachment is created in an environment. We are going to destroy that environment. When we can destroy that environment, it can't be born. When it can't be born, the false sense of existence can't be born. And you means seeing occurs, there won't be anyone to see, anything to see. But seeing occurs. You will enjoy your lives to the fullest without a burden. Isn't that the most joyful thing in the world? This is not hard, I think. Is it hard? Just to see this as it is this hard? No, but you don't do that. It is not hard. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, practicing the path is not hard. Understanding this is not hard. I don't know. When I tell, I can understand what I tell, but I don't know what words I use and what you understand. Perhaps I use wrong words and you understand wrong things. I don't know, but I understand it properly. According to my understanding, this is so easy. This is so easy. But practicing the path is so slow. It happens due to the ego. But when you practice forcefully means try to be mindful with the truth. That's why we have to practice mindful awareness. Awareness about the truth. You should aware about the truth all the time. The mind should be filled with the truth. Then it can make decisions. In that case, I had to remind you that I didn't say there is no such thing called things. I didn't say nothing is in the world. I said there is no such thing called objects. Therefore, don't meditate or don't contemplate that nothing is in the world. Everything is empty. Some people think that the Buddha said that everything is empty. Shunyata. When they hear the shunyata, they think that everything is empty. Nothing is there. Do you really believe that nothing is there? Nothing is there? Nothing is here? I can prove that practically. Nothing is there? No. Energy is aggregated, but it is not fixed. It is not fixed. It is anicca. Therefore, it is dukkha. Therefore, it is anatta. Apply that. Anicca. These letters are anicca. When you see this letter, you see S. Doesn't matter. This is S. Conventionally, we learned that. It is S. That's totally fine. But this is not fixed. You should know that this is not fixed. If we collect all these, actually this is a compound. The color is created in the mind, but a dye is here. It's a chemical compound. We can collect it. We can measure the weight. In that case, we know that it is energy. Therefore, I applied some energy here. And it has particles. It has electrons, protons, neutrons. Therefore, it is not fixed. It's a collection. And I was talking about this energy. Now let's talk about what you see. You see this shape. But before you see this shape, a dot must be created first. Then another dot, another dot, another dot. 1,000,000 dots are created. After that, a shape is created. Then when you see this shape, you should understand that this is only an aggregation. This can't be a fixed object. When you have that understanding, I'm pretty sure you won't feel yourself, ladies and gentlemen. When you keep doing that, you won't feel it anymore. Then you will see, when you see a child, you will see, I can't say it. When you see a child, you see them as it is, as they are. In that case, you have to practice. Otherwise, this understanding is there, I think. I think you have understood this, but you have to practice. You have to practice. Each time, whatever you do, just practice. I don't ask you to go to Valimalu and practice. What about now? Now you see things. Then if you see things, you have to practice. When you hear things, you have to practice. When you have a new set of eyes of wisdom, now use them. But if you try to survive in the world, if you try to live in the world, like if you try to gather things towards you, acquire things towards you, and you always think about that, then you won't practice the path. You don't practice the path, and you only try to satisfy the ego. If you think that you want to acquire something, and when you say you want to acquire something, just imagine that you want to acquire something. That means you decide that. You decide your existence. You decide your existence, or you have perceived your existence, and you try to maintain that. But if you can apply the Dhamma whenever you see something, whenever you hear, that means whenever you live, you won't have any wantings. When you feel yourself, you will have a wanting. Because this wanting belongs to you. We can't see any wanting that doesn't belong to anyone. Can you find at least one wanting that doesn't belong to anyone? No, if there is a wanting, it belongs to someone. That means someone must be created before that. Therefore, when you try to acquire something, that means you have a wanting. When you have a wanting, you should realize that the ego is created. The ego wants this. The ego tries to acquire it. I'm not talking about a piece of land or a house or something big. I'm talking about a piece of soap, perhaps. Or some words. If you think that why don't they talk to me? If they can talk to me, I'll be happy. I want you to talk to me. I want you to like me. I want you to love me. I want. In that case, now you don't apply the Dhamma. You just apply Adhamma. Because the ego is created. Now the ego wants to be satisfied. Therefore, actually, if you can apply the Dhamma, you don't want anyone less Achanma. You don't anyone to live. You can live freely. But you want someone to help you. That's natural. If you can't walk, you want someone to help. That's not a wanting, actually. It's a need. You need things. You don't want things. Therefore, don't try to have a wanting. Each time when you have a wanting, just try to think. Try to differentiate between need and a wanting. Try to understand that whether it's a need or a wanting. If it is a wanting, actually you don't need it. You need the Dhamma. When you need something, you need that. But when you want something, actually you need the Dhamma. Try to understand that. Therefore, each time when you want something, then when you feel vexation, perhaps you have to be with your family. You always want to be with your family. Perhaps you can't come and ordain because you think that you lose your family. Actually, I can't remember now. I also had those things, I think. I can't remember now. That feeling when a boy sees a girl and he really wants that girl and he feels so vexed. Now I can't remember that. It's like a magic to me. How? How can someone commit suicide because of a girl? How can someone say that I can't come to ordain, I can't practice the path, I can't achieve my salvation because I want to be with my family? I can't imagine that. I think I can't go back. Therefore, I'm pretty sure I had those things, but now I can't remember. I can't remember means actually I can't imagine. How can I be vexed because of a girl or family or anything? Swagatang vatameya simama buddhassa santeke. A great thing happened to me when I came to the Buddha. Let's practice. I also practice. I want you to practice. No, not want. I need you to practice. Therefore you can promise me and you can stop practicing. Before I really wanted you to practice, ladies and gentlemen. I was so vexed because of that. When I see that you were going to hell, people when people commit sins, I was so vexed. Therefore, I really wanted them to stop that, and I wanted to help them. I was so vexed. When I was thinking about that, when you go to hell and when you suffer in hell, I felt that. Then I wanted to help. I helped, but I wanted to help. That means I was vexed and I helped. It wasn't a real help. It wasn't real help because I was vexed at that time. When I was vexed, how can I see the world? How can I see nature? Because when I tell these things to you, I should see nature. By looking at nature, I speak. If I can't see nature, if I see objects and people, then I will only talk about them. I was so vexed by looking at you, and you will go to hell. And when I ask you to, I force you, don't, please don't. Perhaps I will cry. Please don't. Don't harm anyone. There are some people, they cry because others are harming others. Because they can't tolerate that. That's not nature. You can say that, oh, they are very kind. Kind or foolish. I'm not going to give you the answer. You will realize one day. I saw the kindness in the Buddha. The Buddha doesn't cry. We can't see people go to hell, ladies and gentlemen, but Buddha saw. We haven't seen hell. Have you? But the Buddha saw. The Buddha saw hell. The Buddha saw heaven. The Buddha saw human world and Brahma world and all these worlds. The Buddha saw all sentient beings, but he only saw nature. Therefore, he accepted it. And he showed us the path to attain Nibbana, to go to hell, to go to heaven, to go to Brahma world, to go to Arupa. He explained nature. Nature has those paths to go. Tell me, who do you want to become? A god? Okay, there's a path for you. You want to go to hell? Okay, then go to hell. This is the path. The Buddha taught us. Buddha taught us, and he taught us that when you go to 4 great hells, you can't achieve your salvation. And you will suffer physically. Anyway, you will suffer mentally and physically. Anyway, you suffer mentally in every world. But when you go to 4 great hells, the 4 great hells, then you will suffer mentally and physically, both. Therefore, he asked us not to go there. Actually, he didn't ask us not to go there. He asked us not to practice those things, not to use those paths. But he didn't force us. He wasn't vexed by seeing 4 great hells. Because for him, or to him, they are nature. Practice the path. You will realize what I said. Then I was vexed, and I thought that no, how can I help everyone to attain Nibbana? Even the Buddha couldn't do that. Then how can I do that? Then I practice. I preached and I practice, I still practice. Today, now, right now, I'm practicing. I'm talking to you and I'm practicing. If I see beautiful faces, I know that it's my fault. I still practice. Because faces are not beautiful. You knew it, huh? Faces are not beautiful. It should be the same. It should be the same. But if you can't apply anicca dukkha anatta when you see something, then you will see a fixed shape. That fixedness, which means that nitya sukha atta is there. That means pleasure is there. That is the place where attachment is born. That's how you get attached to faces, figures, men, women, objects, animals. Anicca dukkha anatta. That is the salvation. Mahasangha is the salvation army. Come and join. This is a salvation army. You have to help everyone. You have to spread anicca dukkha anatta. That is the Dhamma. Anicca dukkha anatta. And it's so simple if you can practice. You have a week before we talk about something else, but still we will talk about anicca dukkha anatta. Practice. Will you do that? Practice. See. See the truth. Perceive the truth. And then you can destroy your own jail. Or I put it in these words. A jail is created. The creation of the jail is a process. That process occurs all the time. Then you become a prisoner all the time. The process occurs and the jail is created and you become a prisoner. If you can stop the process, it won't be a jail anymore. If there is no jail, there is no a prisoner. You will be in nature and you will be free. Without any attachment, without any wantings, without any hopes. Look, when you don't have hopes, you don't need a God, or you don't need God to help you. Now you need God to help you because you need to have hope. Think about that. Why do you need God? Because of wantings. When you can't fulfill them, when you can't achieve them, you can't tolerate vexation. Therefore you need hope. Therefore you have to create God. Therefore, God didn't create us. We have created God. You all have created God. Almighty God. You need Almighty God to help you because you have big wantings. Because of that, the mind is vexed. Therefore, if someone says, this tree is sacred, and offer something to that tree, and the tree will help you, then you believe it. If you want to be free, this is the path. Help yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Help you. If you have the Dhamma, if you can use yourself to help yourself, you can win. You have the Dhamma, definitely. You have the Dhamma. When you come here, you always listen to the Dhamma. When you associate with the Mahasangha, you will always listen to the Dhamma. But you need you as well to help yourself. Help yourself. Otherwise, it has to be with these 5 things. To maintain these things, you have to give your life. Therefore, you have, I think, you have, if I say this, perhaps you will be angry with me, but the truth is, you have wasted 50 years of your life. And you are going to waste another 20. Then you will die empty-handed. Because you can't take anything with you when you die. You only spent your life to buy, to sell, perhaps to enjoy. Actually, you have spent your life to have wantings, to be vexed, to do something to come out of vexation, to be afraid of losing it, and to maintain them. Therefore, if someone asks, what have you done in your life? You can say these 5 things. I had wantings, many wantings. Therefore, I was vexed. I wanted to come out of vexation. Then I worked hard. I worked my fingers to the bone. Then I achieved them somehow. But I had a fear of losing them. Therefore, I maintained it. By doing so, I have spent my life. I think that I have many things because I have achieved, because I was vexed, because I had wantings. But you know that you can't take them with you. You will die empty-handed. You know, when you hang yourself by using a rope, I don't think you can take that rope even. You will keep that rope in this world and you will go. You can't take anything with you. Therefore, I always tell people to empty your accounts. I know this is bit difficult. It's a bit difficult to tell you, but don't do this. But this is what I have understood. Empty your account. Because your house to be burnt. It's about to burn. If you can take something out from your house, you can use them. But if you keep those things in your house, when the house burns, everything will be destroyed. You can't use them back. Empty your accounts, ladies and gentlemen, and exchange them to the universal currency. Wherever you go, you can use them. When you practice the path, at the same time, I want you to do that, but I don't force you to do. But I force you to practice the path. Your house will burn very soon. We never know when it happens. We never know when it happens. It will happen, but when it happens, whatever you took out can be used. Earn merits. Earn merits. Help everyone to attain Nibbana. Most of the time you help people to practice these 5 things. Actually, these things are like Vimukta-ayatana. Pancha Vimukta-ayatana, but not Vimukta-ayatana. They are Miccha Vimukta-ayatana. People try to do these things to make themselves happy. When they have a wanting, they accept it, ladies and gentlemen. You always accept it. When you have a wanting, you think that, I have a wanting, I have a desire, I like it. I want to become a doctor. My son wants to become a doctor. He is so nice. That's how you think. He's so intelligent, he wants to become a doctor. Being a doctor is not the problem, ladies and gentlemen. He wants to become a doctor. When you see that word, like you should be afraid of that. Wants to become, that means you should understand that your son is suffering. That's why when someone has a wanting, when I hear that, I always think that, she is foolish. Why do you want anything? You have all the needs, then take your needs, but no wantings. Have a good education, but don't try to be anyone. That's what we practice. I study 8 languages now. I'm going to study all the languages in the world if I have time. It isn't a burden. It doesn't bother me. I have teachers here. And I learn. I don't have a wanting. Every day I work. Every day I study. I allocate some time and I work. I don't have a wanting. I don't want to speak 8 languages. I don't want to speak 10 languages. But I will. I want our sons and daughters to do the same. Just learn. If you do A-levels, you do your A-levels. Just fine. If you fail, you do another one, another time. 10 times, 15 times if you want. Because we are here to learn. We don't want anything. I don't want your results. I don't care. If you are not happy and you got 3 A's, we fail. We are fail. Because our project is not making 3 A's. Our project is make all the beings happy. Therefore be happy. If you have something, be happy. If you don't have something, be happy. How can you be happy? Look, I don't have anything, but I'm happy. Happiness means the serenity of the mind. Achieve the serenity of the mind. Whether you have it or not, whether you have anything or not, you will experience your happiness. That's it. Always focus on serenity. With that, study something. We will look after you. I always tell them, we will look after them. Yes or no? That's it. The entire world will look after you all, because the world needs you. They have money, they have wealth, but they don't have peace of mind. Therefore, You have to give them. First of all, achieve it. And try to see nature and speak. See nature and speak. Explain nature by seeing nature. Therefore, try to see nature and be nature. I'll see you next week. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all.